Good evening and happy Wednesday, and welcome to FTB Sport. You can check us out on YouTube and do share us if you like the show. And of course, we've got this Facebook group where everyone puts all sorts of outrageous banter on. So we share on Facebook, we share on YouTube. There's lots of other shows to tune into. And if you like it, join your mates. So yeah. Tonight, obviously, there's lots of things going on in the world of transfers, mostly rumours, not anything really over the line apart from a new manager for Wolves. But nothing else over the line. It's all lots and lots of rumours, which I'll jog through in a mo. And we do have two Norwich fans on the show. We have Ben, who you can see, and Dan, who may jump back into us. And Ben is right out there in Norfolk, yeah?
Yeah.
In the sticks in a field and seems to have wonderful reception, and yet Dan on the outskirts of London doesn't. So I don't know what that says of the world. So what was going on today? The big money rumor today was that Hakimi from Inter rumored to be snaffled away from Juventus to go to Chelsea for, I can't believe I'm saying, 69 million quid. And am I right? He's a fullback. Well, actually, they've got probably almost the two best Premier League fullbacks there is, with Chilwell at left back and Reece James, who every time I watch him, the lad gets better and better and better. Thank God he's English. At right back. So, Man City did sign João Cancelo for a similar amount when you'd have thought they got two wonderful fullbacks. Well, one actually, sorry, Walker. There's no Mr. Nobody on the left side, but there you go. Well, that was the big one. I wonder whether that will come to fruition. There's still lots of noises about Grealish and City. You know, Grealish is doing a bit of a love fest with Kane today, saying how much he's developed him. I don't know what that's all about. Haaland to Chelsea, the conversation continues, and interesting, this Sol at Atletico and Bernardo at Man City proposed swap. I'm not certain that's such a good thing for Man City, but I do think Sol's a good player. Really interesting one. The guy Pellegrini, who's the captain, I think, of Roma, rumored to Liverpool. I thought that was interesting. There was a rumor I read, lads. You can comment on this in a moment. I think this sounds like a goodie. Josh King to Norwich. I read that. Hector Bellerin to whoever will take him. I can't remember. It was going back to, who was the previous manager at Arsenal? The guy who beat United.
Uno Emery
was going to take him back. And then there's another lad, Fabio Vieira at Porto to Liverpool, rumour. Will Liverpool let Minamino go to Southampton? Another rumour. Arsenal, possibly in their dreams, for Neves of Wolves, who is a really good player. They'd be fortunate to get him. Hudson-Odoi, who seems to be linked every summer that he's been born since he was a child with a move, rumoured to Bayern. That would be a hell of a move for him. I mean, I think he's a good player, but that would be a heck of a move. But then, they have had previous success with players. And as I said, that big Chelsea one. So they're the kind of hot rumours of the day that are doing the rounds, being gossiped about. How much is true? How much is wishful thinking? Whatever. Anyway, to Ben, Dan, welcome to FTB Sport. Please do join us on the normal site on Facebook, like us, and maybe we'll do a show for the Premier League. We were just chatting about all season. A bit like when they do all the Amazon Prime stuff. The documentary. Where Eagles Dare or wherever it may be.
Might need to make the most of the season while we're in the Premier, and the way it's been going so far. And I think it's interesting. I think the rumour that you mentioned that I think is most interesting off the back of what's happened at Norwich is the Grealish one, because they've basically signed a replacement for Grealish in Emi Buendia, who will be half what they'll get for Grealish and basically plays the same game. And I think, don't know what you think, Dan, but one of the things we always knew that this could happen. But what slightly shocked us Norwich fans is it's Villa, who apparently outbid Arsenal. Arsenal were in for him. They've been linked with him, but they were outbid by Villa to get Emi for about, it'll rise to 38 million. But what I don't understand is why he's gone to Villa, other than obviously the wages. But he basically he's a carbon copy of Jack Grealish, and I wonder whether there's a deal about to happen. Grealish, there's a deal being done somewhere with City, but just waiting for the Euros to finish, and he'll be off. because
Yeah.
40
There was
million
a,
for a
there was a
team like
Ward
Villa
Prowse link as
is a
well.
lot.
They were sniffing around Ward Prowse, so they
Yeah.
get both for Grealish. So to swap
Yeah.
Buendia and Prowse for Grealish, probably if you're a Villa fan, you'd say that's not bad consolation.
Yeah,
What is Buendia for both questions? Either of you, is Buendia that good? Is he worth the money? Is really a new Jack Grealish?
Yeah, I mean, I personally, having watched him play, I didn't think Maddison was worth £25 million when he moved to Leicester. I thought actually we got a really good deal for him. But I think when you're in and around players that, as much as you hate to say it, have got better quality in the Prem and in what those higher top six teams, is it does bring out a better style of football, and we've seen that with Maddison in Leicester. And I think Buendia will slot in there really well. I mean, the ball sticks to his feet. He's got great vision. He scores goals. As I was saying on your last show, actually his goals and assists. Actually, he had 31 goals and assists last season in the Championship, which actually, was more than Pukki. Pukki had 30, I think, goals and assists, 26 goals and 4 assists. He's a really good player, and I think actually he probably's gone to Villa to get some game time. You just never know in these big top six clubs where actually you bench a little bit in squad rotation. Whereas Villa, to be honest, if you look at Grealish, played pretty much every game he was allowed to, apart from injury. And I think Buendia will get good 20-25 games out of Villa next season, and that's probably why he's on there, to be honest. And they've offered him 38 million as well, 33 up to 38, as Ben says. I think Norwich was savvy enough. Was it Getafe he was at beforehand? But they actually paid off that sell-on clause prior to going to Villa. So actually, Norwich obviously saw the potential in him.
Which is the story there is Getafe were in serious financial difficulties, so we've slightly shafted them, I think, on that. Which such is the modern game. But I think because they were struggling, and I don't know I haven't heard a rumor of what the amount was, but it'll be less than the 20% of 30 million they would have got in the original agreement. So the 1.5 million, is a clearly unbelievable deal. And I think one thing you can say about Emi is that, and it's backed up by the fact he's been in the Argentina squad for the last 2 games for the first time, for someone who's not been in the Prem the last season, and he has really improved his all-round game, I reckon, Dan, don't you? I mean, we knew he was great going forward, but now he tracks back, and he's a little fella, but he's really much stronger in the tackle. And the goals we were scoring last season when he was tackling one of the opposition to get the ball, I mean, when we were in the Prem last time, he wasn't doing any of that. And I think those of people that are, familiar with Premier League and haven't seen us since the last time we were in the Prem, he's a far better player. And I think he'll do well at Villa, particularly if they sell Grealish, because that's my only concern in terms of game time if that doesn't happen. But I'm sort of more convinced that's going to be the big deal of the summer, because I think the Harry Kanes and the Haaland 100+ million, there isn't the money out there, but I think City could get to 80 million for Grealish, which would be, I still think that'd be a good deal for City, because he is an outstanding, De Bruyne, Foden, Grealish. I mean, that's a decent midfield. That is a decent midfield.
What are you going to do with the money?
Well, I mean, I think to be fair, Stuart Webber did an interview up here about 3 or 4 weeks ago, just when we'd finished the season, and he already said that potentially we would need to sell one of our what we call crown jewels, which is Emi Buendia, Todd Cantwell, Max Aarons, having already sold Godfrey and Lewis last season. Because if you go through the players that we need, and don't forget, last time we were in the Prem, we got 21 points. So we basically need to double our points tally from what we got last time as a minimum. He's learned. Last time we basically rewarded the whole of all the young players, which included the Cantwells and the Buendias, with new contracts, and didn't bring in any players in. And I think he's identified some key positions that we need to strengthen. And having already spent 16 million on 2 of the defenders that we had last season, we need the 33 million, because there's about, I don't know what you think, Darryl, I reckon there's at least 4 positions we need to strengthen in our existing squad, and the players we need to buy, we need to spend. We're going to have to spend, and I think on top of everything else, COVID has cost us about 30 million. So in many ways, the Buendia money, in some respects, could only get us back to square one. But I think he's done this deal early, so the funds are available now for him to buy the relevant replacements. FALKE's really keen on early signings, so the pre-season is very important to him.
So Dan, come on, let's be having you. Who would you like to buy?
Well, I agree with Ben. I mean, Max Aarons, I think they're obviously nervous that the bid's going to come in for Max, and I suppose that 33 could become like 16 to 70 million. So I know that there's rumours, and this is basically what I've seen on the internet. But this is there's rumours around Nico Williams at Liverpool, and also Bogle from Sheffield United as potential replacements if Max Aarons goes, which actually would be two good acquisitions for Norwich. I think they definitely need a central defender. I think one thing they have done this year is they've shored up their defence. They haven't scored as many as when they last got promoted, but they haven't conceded. But there's always a vulnerability to Norwich in that back four. And I think the way FALKE plays and with wing backs tracking up is you've got to have two strong central defenders, and you've got to have that holding midfielder. And I suppose with Teti now sort of retiring from that position, you sort of feel like a central defender, which they're looking at Aya from Celtic, the Norwegian fullback. You probably need someone to replace Teti, but with a bit of legs to sort of as that holding midfielder front to back, like Fernandinho for Man City or Makaleli for Chelsea. You need that person that can go forward as well as back, but is more a defensive midfielder. And then you need someone to accompany, replace Buendia as the playmaker. And again, with Vrancic going as well, a free kick specialist as well has gone. And then you need someone for Pukki as well. So I totally agree, Ben. It's almost like Max Aarons' replacement, central defender, creative midfielder, defensive midfielder, and attacker. And it's 4 of those 5 positions. And I think Pukki was worked out very quickly in the Prem last year, last time we were in the Prem, wasn't he, Ben? Because I think he scored something like 10 goals up to December, then scored 1, and I think that was either from a tap-in or a penalty post December. But he was basically man marked, and we didn't have a second option. And I don't think Jordan or Adam are probably 2 that will probably create problems in the Prem. You probably need someone like a Josh King that's got a bit of pace to give Pukki options as well.
I was thinking that what's been proved at the moment is that with good sports science, at 34, a good midfielder, even a striker's career is not over. No. You look at Font and what he's done at Lille, wasn't it, winning the French league? Or you look at Pepe at 39, 38, 39, Ronaldo 37, Fernandinho 36. There seems to be legs. And I remember I think it was the season that Fulham came up with Roy and got to the Europa League final, etc. And wasn't Danny Murphy in midfield? That's about, after he left Liverpool, it's about 34, 35. And then they had Scott Parker after that. And I just wondered if Norwich need a couple of those sort of carries, like a Josh King up front. But a decent commanding but aged well-seasoned midfielder like a Fernandinho. Jesus, if you could take him for a year, you could even get 2 years out of him. And the guy hasn't gone out. He's really looked after himself. I don't think he's seen a gym in his life. He just plays football. I don't think he's. I don't think he has many Ginsters pasties, or there's that from your or Delia's.
No, Delia's pies more like. But I totally agree. I think the difference with this year, going into the Prem, which compared to last time, his experience is really important, because even last year we still had, apart from Tim Krul and Alex Teti from previous time we were in the Prem, we had hardly any. Sam Byram had a little bit, but don't forget Ben Godfrey never played a minute of Premier League football. Aarons had never played a minute of Premier League football. Teemu Pukki hadn't played a minute of Premier League football. Todd Cantwell, all these players which were great. And we used to go to games and see them getting knocked off the ball, and they just weren't clever enough. And I'd like to see us buy players with Premier League experience. And I think we should mention Ollie Skipp, who was potentially one of our players of the season this season on loan from Tottenham. Although he's only 19, you wouldn't believe it when you watch him play. And I'm hopeful that they'll bring in a big, powerful Conte type manager at Tottenham who doesn't want to look at the young players like Ollie Skipp, and we can pick him up, because that'd be an unbelievable signing for us. Because at 19, he's an England under-21 star.
Some of those top 6 clubs might want to loan players out. You look at, I can't remember, I think Fulham had about 5 or 6 players on loan, didn't they? Including that fantastic centre-back Anderson they had on loan all season. He's really good. And the young guy they picked up from Man City, who's a terrific centre-back. But, players like that there could well be, without splashing the full capital, there could be some good loanees out there to bring in.
That's a really good point, actually.
Fulham and Sheffield United players even loaned for a season while they're down in the Championship, perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really good. The Ollie Skipp thing. I mean, we talk about that sort of. You wonder whether Norwich's defence have been better with having Skipp in team this season, and actually, Ben, it's a really good call, because actually he is that defensive midfielder. He's got legs. He pushes forward when he needs to, but he's back quicker than anyone. And actually, he does support, Hanley, particularly at the back, in terms of just that sort of mop up. I just think Hanley needs that sort of buddy, doesn't he, this year? And then if you were to get Skipp back, actually that would be a really nice little diamond in front of the Tim Krul, and actually you'd feel a bit more confident that they wouldn't leak as many goals, because they play some beautiful football. I mean, numbers of chances created this season, I mean, were hundreds more than the next best team, but it's their ability to tuck them away, which we can't just rely on Pukki the whole way. I mean, you look at Finland coming to Euros, their whole strategy is Pukki. So all teams will do is mark Pukki out of the game, and Finland have got nothing. So Pukki needs that person to run off and that distraction.
There has to be at the back of Norwich's mind the thought that if they do a couple of big signings and blow all that money and they go down, they've got those on the books. So I'm thinking about like the Ryan Brewster factor. When Sheffield United spent 25 million quid on him, wasn't it? 25 million.
Yeah, I mean, I think the loan.
They spent 20 odd million on Berg as well. And they're now in the Championship, those two lads.
I mean, the thing with Sheffield United, you think that might be a right area to pick up players. But I think, and we felt it, didn't we, Dan? When you get badly relegated, the morale and the mental impact on the squad is pretty severe. So those Sheffield United players, and don't forget, they didn't have Chris Wilder. They had basically an interim manager for 10 games where they'd given up. And they've appointed a decent manager, the ex-Fulham guy. But I think those players will be damaged. And on paper, they'll look good and they could do a job, because they were one of the few teams that had a lower wage bill than Norwich when we were in the Prem last time. So, from a wage perspective, you could see maybe we could tempt some of them. But I'd be severely worried about some sort of traumatised players who haven't won a match for weeks. I think that's really important to be careful, and that's where you mentioned some of the Liverpool players that have been playing a lot of football last season because of the injury crisis. They won't want to go back to playing reserve team football for next season when Van Dijk's fit and Henderson's fit, and they're ready to step up. And I would be delighted to get one or two of them on loan. While they've experienced, 15 odd Premier League games.
There have been some big signings of ex-Liverpool fringe players like Ryan Brewster. And who was the guy who went to Solanke, who went to Bournemouth for a shed full of money? And he's done okay this last season in the Championship, but did nothing. So, I mean, that's I think that's about 50 million between those two players. Then they were Liverpool fringe players. It's like looking like Urugi. Can he make it in the Premier League in another team when he's probably a 20, maybe 15 million pound player if you want to go out and buy him? But will he be another Brewster or Solanke?
That big sort of player
picking
like
up fringe players for 15, 20 million.
I think what's
Urugi, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, I think what's probably likely to happen is we'll see some more foreign players brought in, because they'll need to get a couple of bargains in there. And I think strikers, for me, a club like Norwich, I mean, Pookie is the ultimate example of a free transfer that worked out. But clubs like Norwich will never be able to afford a striker, ready-made Premier League striker, unfortunately. And we're one of quite a few teams. I mean, it's interesting. Look at Palace have, signed Benteke on for another couple of years. And, it's a strange decision, other than the fact that they went out to the market to try and buy a new striker, and they're looking at 30 million. And as you said, Ian, some of that is not a guarantee. And I can see us going for loan strikers or international Bundesliga strikers. German strikers is a could be an option for us. Because as Dan said, Pookie, he's a great player. We love him, and he's our number one for sure. But he's you want to keep him fresh. And last season we didn't keep him fresh. He picked up an injury, and then the second half of the season, on top of everything else that went wrong, we lost his goals. And I would be, Ida, I was watching the Ireland game last night. Adam Ida played up front. And, he looked out of his depth against Hungary, which is a similar sort of Premier League type experience, and I just felt, he's not good enough for us. And, I think that's my biggest worry. I think we've got some great players, but up front, if anything, if Pookie lose form, and strikers do, strikers do have off days, and you want to be able to bring someone in, and when every point's going to count for us next season, I can't see Hugel and Ida doing it. So that's my biggest concern.
Cool. How long ago since you felt there was a really good Norwich team? What would you say was the best Norwich team you've seen in the last 10?
Last 10 years. That short
period. Guys who've left.
Yeah,
team together.
Lambert I think the year that we went up with Lambert and the Grant Holt, and I don't know, we just had that real belief. I think we finished 12th, 13th that season. Actually, even after that with Chris Hughton, we had a good season the year after. But we had some great. had Johnny House, and we had what's his name, who's now at Derby, Bradley Johnson. We had Pilkington. We had. We just had people that could go forward, and Grant Holt was always a big bruising forward, and actually what he did is he panicked defenders because he was imposing. He'd get on the end of headers. I remember Liverpool battered us in that season. I think it was 2012. Battered us. They had 28 shots or something like that, and Dalglish was the manager. And we had one chance, and it was a floated in cross straight on Grant Holt, and he literally just knocked the two defenders out of the way, headed into the back of there. And that's what Norwich need. They need that someone that's, we're a bit of a small team, and we need that bruise like Benteke or something like that.
Yeah. But I would say what we've got at the moment is potentially one of the most exciting that we've had, Ian, to be honest with you, because they're young players, and as Norwich fans, I don't know, speak for you, Dan, but we buy fully into the concept here. With we say within our means, Delia she's not a wealthy owner, and she will never be able to put a hand in her pocket. So we depend on the young players coming through, and we've seen, and they don't all work out. And again, on the bench last night for the Republic of Ireland was an 18-year-old centre back that played the last 8 games of last season for us, young lad. And he looks really, really promising. And there's another signal of someone coming through. And I think when you support a club like Norwich, I think you see these young players come through. And, that is a really exciting thing to watch, because quite often, as a season ticket holder, you watch their debuts, you watch them struggle. And then the Todd Cantwell's, really, we remember Todd Cantwell's debut in that Chelsea Cup game between the three of us. We came on all arms and legs and running around in headless chicken stuff, and now he's a rated Premier League player. So,
what about you mentioned it about 10-15 minutes ago? Was it Brian who went to Fulham? Was it Brian?
The American guy?
No. Was it a fullback that he sold over the last couple of years, 2-3 years ago?
Jamal Lewis, we sold to Newcastle.
And it was also they've all gone to Newcastle. There was Josh as well. What's his name? Josh.
Jacob Murphy.
Jacob Murphy. Sorry, Josh Murphy's brother, isn't it? So, but yeah, those are the only two that I can sort of think of. Maddison was a big one. Jamal's had a tough time actually at Newcastle this season. I think he's had a bit of a wake-up call a little bit there. There's a good question on there actually about who do we think will finish above us. Yeah. So if we do stay up, who do we think will finish above Ben next year? Other than maybe the two that have come up with us.
I've got something controversial. I think when I saw Palace sign Benteke, with the upheaval that's going to go on at that club, I tell you what, I think there's going to be a Palace type team that's going to drop down in the same way that Stoke did not that long ago, and even Swansea when they went down, they'd had several seasons in the Prem, and I do think there's going to be a reasonably established team like a Palace that's going to go down. I think Brentford have got lots of similarities to us in terms of the way they approach their squad and their club, which I obviously fully endorse. And with Ivan Toney up front, they've got their own Timu Puki. But again, I see a squad that will struggle in the Prem like ours did last year. Funnily enough, I think Watford have probably got a good chance of staying up. So I think definitely Palace and Brentford for me would be two. Other than that, I think it's going to have to be a Newcastle Brighton.
I think Brighton will be a risk this year because they're talking about Potter's in conversations about the Everton job, isn't he? Yeah. So if he was to leave, I think he's done a great job at Brighton. He is, and I think he's done a great job with actually probably not the greatest of Premiership teams last year. But I think if he goes, to Ben's point, I think someone who's been up there 3, 4, maybe 5 years could be one of those. And actually, even Villa's form when Grealish wasn't in the team last year. If you looked at their form with Grealish not in the team, were they almost close to a bottom 3 team? They didn't get many points, did they, towards the end of the season until Grealish came back. So I don't know. I think it's going to be wide open.
Struggled for a while too, didn't they? They dropped.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they top 4.
Fairly shallow squads getting some key injuries that could wreck a Southampton or a Villa or whatever. But also the management appointment. I've been frustrated today. I wanted Palace to appoint Nuno. I thought he would be great for them. If they can tempt Sean Dyche from Burnley, they will stay up, but Burnley could go down. But if they take a punt on the lad who's from Swansea, can't remember the name of the manager there. I know he's very talented and he's only managed in the Championship and he's done England work, but I think that would be such a high-risk strategy. I'm worried about Palace. I thought Nuno could keep him up, Benitez can keep him up, and Dyche could probably keep him up. But outside of those three, I'm worried.
Should we go for our three then? Go on, Ian. Who's your three then? Go on, put your cards on the table. Who are going to be your three for relegation next year? You know that me and Ben aren't going to say Norwich on our three, so.
And if you do, Ian, I'm logging off.
You can't do that to me. So much depends. I'm going to sit on the fence because it depends if Newcastle get bought and there's any money. If Ashley keeps hold of it, I think Newcastle are at risk. And it depends what COVID does. It depends what injuries do. I think all those teams that have gone up, Norwich, Brentford, Watford, are going to have a bloody big fight on their hands. You're absolutely right. It could be if Palace get the wrong manager, it could be beyond a disaster. Look what happened last time. They didn't win a game for 8 games. They lost the first 8 or 9 games before Roy stepped in. And a lot of those players are kind of still there. Who else? A team no one's mentioned actually is Wolves. I think it's this kind of second, third season syndrome again. If they lose Neves and the new guy doesn't say he's a good experienced manager, I think Porto, but not Premier League experienced. I think bad things could happen to Wolves with losing a couple of players and the manager not being what they think he's being. So there's a variety around the mix. Newcastle, Southampton, the three that came up.
So go on then. Who's your three? Go on, give us your three.
Okay, I'm going. Brentford is my favourite. I'm then going Palace, and I'm going to go Newcastle.
I'm gonna agree with you, but it's a swap shop with Burnley, depending on who's got Sean Dyche.
Okay.
It is. If Burnley lose Sean Dyche, they're going down. I'm sure, absolutely, be bloody certain of that. Sean Dyche keeps them up all the time. If he's gone, they're gone.
Yeah.
I'm going to go three Bs. I'm going to go Brighton, Burnley, Brentford.
See, I think Graham Potter's got enough to keep Brighton up. They play really, really good football, and they do
lack
have
of goals, though, Ian. It's a lack of goals for them.
Yeah, you're right. They need a striker.
Yeah, that's the problem.
They were lucky last year.
Again, they've got to
see a little bit. He's a bit like. Now here's a player for you. Who's going to sign Mitrovic?
I certainly hope
down with Fulham, and the manager doesn't like him. He is a bully boy centre forward. Is it Croatia he plays for? Not Croatia. He plays for Serbia. Yeah. And
he's got a track record in the Champo, though. To be fair to him,
record caps.
Yeah, they might try and keep hold of him to get him out of
motivating. Is he the bully you're looking for?
Yeah, I mean, certainly not for a penalty solution because he wasn't getting penalties. He missed a hatful of chances last season as well. I mean, if you said Lookman, I might be a bit more interested actually because Lookman was brilliant. And his speed, I mean, he's not the big guy, but I mean, again, having him in maybe Emi Bundi's position just off the front two, blimey, that would be good.
He might have to be a purchase because I'm not certain this club would loan him out again. But
he'd have to be offered. But yeah, not a bad call. I hope not. I agree with Ben. I think they'll keep him for the champs anyway because he is proven in the Championship, isn't he? He just he gets the job because you get twice as many chances in the Championship, don't you? So.
Him and Parker just don't seem to get on though, so there might be something there, but we'll see. Anyway. Any last thoughts, chaps? Otherwise,
the only other signing I would like to see, which we've not talked about, is Daniel FALKE, who's going into his last year of his contract. And I think a lot of the success that we are going through at the moment and the way the players have developed been down to him. So I would. The rumours are he is going to sign, but he's out of contract at the end of this season. And I'd love to see him sign on for another couple of years after that because he's fundamental.
Do you remember, Ben, and we were probably guilty of it as well, but FALKE first 5 games in the Championship when we got promoted the first time, and we were all writing him off, that style of play, it's not working and stuff, and he just stuck to what he believed. He got the players on board, and 6-7 games in, we started getting draws and wins, and then we just took off, and he's just got such a, I mean, Guardiola said himself, hasn't he? Pep said himself, one team he likes to watch play football other than his own is Norwich, and he obviously holds FALKE in high regard as well. The love of the beautiful game.
On that basis, I wonder if he'll be knocking on Pep's door and say, "Can you loan us, 2 or 3 players?"
Yeah,
we had Patrick Roberts last time. We had Patrick Roberts off you last time. It didn't work out, but and I think the same relationship with Klopp.
Didn't you have Gunn on loan before he went to Southampton? The goalkeeper.
Yeah, we did. In fact, he's been mooted that he might come back to Norwich just to give Tim Krul a bit of competition. I tell you who would be really good if we could have them. Actually, is it'd be Sterling. Actually.
I think you might get Rory Delap's lad, possibly, and
Diaz and Stones. If we could just have those 3, I reckon we'll say up.
Liam Delap would be a bloody good forward for you. Really, really, he could really explode at Norwich.
Foden on loan as well to cover Bundia. We'd be. I reckon we'd finish 17th.
Well, maybe there's a Foden somewhere at Norwich, but enjoy the Euros, chaps. I hope you really enjoy it.
We will.
In 2 or 3 weeks' time, let's see what's happened at Norwich on the transfers. And then maybe let's get 1 or 2 more Norwich fans together and see if we can get a Norwich group going each week for half an hour in the Premier League. It'd be wonderful to share the journey with you. Really would.
Yeah,
we're looking forward to it. Whatever happens, it'll be fun. That's for sure.
And we 3 have got to pick up some games. Norwich, Norwich on tour.
Yeah,
well,
for sure.
The last game we went to see you in was at Palace. It was the only game that Man City didn't score all season. It was 0-0.
But we also, the 3 of us went to the FA Cup at Chelsea with Norwich, and that was a memorable night.
That was a brilliant night, wasn't it? Equalised with the 94th minute.
Apart from the penalties.
Oh, well,
that was good.
Never mind. That was a good spirit. See you, chaps. Have a lovely evening.
Good stuff.
See
you later. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Take care. See you guys.